Okay, so a former Eagles defensive lineman just came out and said that Jalen Carter can be the best ever. Plus, Big Play Slay said that Fangio will bench a starter. That's not all. Isaiah Rodgers continues to be a fan favorite, and all indications are he might actually start. Lastly, Dave Spadaro joined the show to tell me what he saw during OTAs. But first, let's wish a happy birthday to A.J. Brown, who really is always open. I just noticed, look at the number 2 defender on the Rams. He's already calling it incomplete. He must not know who A.J. Brown is. What is going on, everybody? I go by Philly Mike, and this is the Philly Talk Podcast. And today, as always, we got a lot to get into. But before we do that, Eagle Nation, if you rock with the content, hit that like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss the videos. So as we all know, Devontae Smith held his 3rd annual celebrity softball game, and it was a great turnout. Of course, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, the white team won. The MVP, though, was Chris Smith, Devontae Smith's brother. However, former teammate wide receiver John Hightower really almost took off Jalen Hurts' head. Thank God for the fence being there, but everybody turned out okay. With that being said, the home run derby winner was none other than new fan favorite, cornerback number 34, Isaiah Rodgers, who continues to just show what an athlete he is, and we all know he's climbing up the cornerback ranks. He tweeted this immediately after the softball game. Man, listen, I love y'all Philly fans. The love and support y'all showed me today was amazing. And I see some of y'all not fully believing in what he's going to bring to the table. Remember, A.J. Brown said this about him right after OTAs. For a guy that hasn't played football for a year, coming back, he looks like he's been playing nonstop, Brown said via Tim McManus on ESPN. He's flying around, and he's going to do special stuff for us this year. Pretty high praise and endorsement from 1K Always Open. He ain't the only one, though. Dave Spadaro had some interesting things to say about Isaiah Rodgers, which we'll get to in a little bit. But first, Chris Long had Big Play Slay on his podcast, and he says some things that we got to talk about. The first one is this: Slay on his first impressions of Vic Fangio. I think he's doing a great job. He's quiet, though. He's a guy where you got to go into his office. He's very detailed. He tells you for every position what needs to be done, how to do it, and goes about his day. And he seems like the kind of coach, like, if you don't do what I need you to do, I don't care how much you get paid, I'm benching you. Again, we talked about it on this channel. It's that old school mindset, tough love, but I think it's the perfect mindset we need for an Eagles defense in 2024. After we saw what happened to this defense in 2023, it was way too soft. I think having that coach that will bench any player no matter how much they get paid keeps everybody on their toes and makes everybody play that much harder. But I really do think Fangio is going to change his defense with the tools he got. There are some moving parts, which Dave Spadaro talks about, but I like what I see coming from the defense in general. As for the other topic that was talked about on Chris Long's podcast, it was Jalen Carter. When I watch him, he makes me want to put my pads on and join the team again so I can be like, hey, bro, you could be the best ever. You can be a guy talked about as one of the greatest Eagles defensive linemen of all time. He's that talented. Man, oh man, you can't praise him any higher than that. And it's Chris Long. He knows defensive line play. We're talking about some Eagle greats, Fletch, Reggie White, to be mentioned with them and or better from a guy who played on the defensive line himself is big. And Slay co-signed it. He said, watch out for Jalen Carter in year 2. And we're not talking about a guy who wasn't that good, who's going to get better. He was great his rookie season. It's just watch what he does year 2. It's going to be that much better. Let's hear what Dave Spadaro had to say about OTAs and what he expects at a training camp. Of course, we had to get Dave Spadaro back on the channel. He's been on a couple times, actually a lot, but the first time for the 2024 season, we're going to talk a little OTAs, a little training camp predictions, and of course, just the Eagles overall. Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, how are you doing today?
Philly Mike, I'm doing great. Everyone out there, hope you have a great, healthy, happy 4th of July weekend. And training camp is right around the corner. Can't wait for it.
We've seen Jalen Hurts and some of the wide receivers out there working already. So the work never stops for most of the Philadelphia Eagles, including yourself. But how has OTAs been through your eyes this year? Just the general consensus.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't overreact, first of all, right? You know that. A lot of new pieces here. Fun to watch Saquon actually in an Eagles uniform was kind of like, pinch me, it's actually happening. So that was cool. So many new faces on defense. And I think what everybody kind of looks at least in OTAs, is to try to get a sense of what is Kellen Moore bringing to the offense. How is Vic Fangio changing the defense? And it's really, really hard to tell because they're still installing stuff, and but you get a feel a little bit more for the tempo, any kind of motion before the snap, the routes the receivers are running. So I think there's going to be significant difference in the offense. The defense, there are so many new pieces, Philly Mike, that I can't wait to see it all come together when the pads go on, preseason starts, and we get a little feel for how Vic's going to play it. But in general, I would say, one of the keys here is to learn from and at the same time move on past what happened at the end of last year and get ready for 2024. So I definitely sense that was accomplished. Sensed a lot of chemistry building, seemed like it was really great spirits, and the football was crisp. And so that's just a little taste of what's to come when we get to training camp. But I mean, I'm really excited for the athleticism of the defense. I think the Eagles are going to be better on the back end of the defense in terms of foot speed and their ability to get to the football. I'm really excited to see the linebackers and see how that all plays out. A new day at defensive tackle with Fletcher Cox retired. Offensive line, obviously, new pieces up there. So a lot to watch. And I think the Eagles were off to a good start in spring.
According to OTAs, and you're right, they're just installing stuff. They're in shorts. No, not even they don't even have pads on. But the
Yeah.
defense, you know, according to the beat writers, every beat writer has a different twist in how they relay the information on Twitter to us. But the defense looked like it had the upper hand, at least in shorts. What would you say about that?
At times, I mean, I don't, again, like the hot take department is kind of foolish when they're running around in shorts. And it's good to see that the defense was around the football. This team didn't have enough pressure on the quarterback last year, didn't have enough takeaways. So it's really encouraging to see that. But the offense had some plays as well. So I don't, I mean, it's just so hard to compete with the the hot take crew, and that's fine. That's their job. But all in all, there were days when the defense was really, really good and the offense wasn't as sharp, and there were days when the offense was really sharp. So I don't look at it that way. I look at it like, how are you fulfilling your assignments? Are you in the right place where the coordinators want you to be? And at the end of the day, that's what's really important. Are you lining up in the right spots? Do we have to call timeout and have everybody come back to the huddle? And I didn't see a lot of that. I didn't see the football on the ground a lot. I saw a defense that was really swarming. And again, these are 7-on-7 drills. These are not, full pad 11 on 11. So what I'm looking for also, Philly Mike, is some of the questions that I have about this roster. Who's the number 2 tight end? Where's the depth after the starters at wide receiver? How good is Paris Campbell? Can John Ross, who had, I thought, a very good spring, be a factor and make this roster? Are the two rookies, the two draft picks, Johnny Wilson and Anais Smith, what kind of impact? How quickly are they learning the offense? What about the running back situation? How are they going to use Saquon? And certainly he was more involved in the passing game. So I kind of look at it that way rather than who won that particular rep. And then, you look at the depth chart, who's getting all the reps, and, is Devin White, where is he? How fast is he to the football? Things like that. So I'm not going to judge offense versus defense. I'm looking at the individual pieces and kind of how they're picking things up. And I will tell you, from the team side, everybody was really encouraged with the work that was done in the spring. No injuries. It's good to see that the receivers and our quarterbacks are working out, and they're getting, the mandate is to come back on July 22nd in the best shape of your life. I sense that training camp will be a little bit different than it has been in the past. certainly going up to New England and practicing with the Patriots will be excellent work for the Eagles. So, uh, I mean, I was encouraged, and everybody was encouraged. And so, who won, who lost, that really is just kind of a day by day fun hot take stuff.
What is your take on just the rookies that coming in, especially the two DBs, first round pick Quinyon Mitchell and second round pick Cooper DeJean? Just your initial thought on just them in Eagle Green and how they flew around.
So my thought is combined with people who actually know what they're talking about, talking to them, and they were very impressed with how they picked up the defense, athleticism. Cooper is being used in a bunch of different spots here. Q is more of an outside cornerback. Got some great reps against obviously AJ and working against a great group of receivers, different sizes, really athletic, gets to the football. And that's what I saw. And then just the way that they kind of pick things up and acclimated to the tempo of the day. Here's your meeting schedule. Here's what you're going to learn. Here's all the information we're feeding you. Take that information, go out on the field, show us that you can assimilate what you learned in your brain, translate it to the football field, play the right technique, be in the right spot. And I think the Eagles were really pleased with both of those young men. And it will obviously ratchet up when training camp comes. But those are two players that the Eagles really, truly, honestly loved in the draft. They considered taking both of them in round number one. And so I think early returns again are very positive, and the next phase comes in training camp. And really, how they use their time during this 6+ week break. You don't leave NovaCare and go back home for the first time since the draft and screw around. You're not out partying with your buddies. You are in the playbook. You are getting in shape. You are sharpening things up. Certainly, you're seeing your family and your friends and having a good time. No doubt about that, but you better come back and be ready. So that'll be the next test for them. How did they use this time to prepare for training camp?
Staying with that room in general, the rookies and the veterans, you would have to say that this is one of the better DB rooms you've seen with the Eagles overall, from a top guys to even just in depth wise in a while.
Well, I mean, in a while for sure. Like what jumps out to me immediately when you say that is Troy Vincent, Bobby Taylor, Al Harris, Sheldon Brown, Lito Shepherd.
Yeah.
That was quite a. I think
That was
Al was
that was
still on
that,
the
that
team
was
then.
my high school years. That was my high
Yeah,
school years.
right. So this is a really interesting group where you look at it and you go, over the last couple seasons, the Eagles have transitioned the position. And last year with Kaylee Ringo, and then they bring in Eli Ricks and they get some play out of both of them and some other players, young players. And then this year, your first two draft picks are cornerbacks. So
And Isaiah Rodgers, who
and
has
Isaiah
gotten
Rodgers,
high praise.
who's like the big, I mean, he's the big wild card here, right? I mean, he was the one who kind of jumped out and was around the football a lot in the spring and says his legs feel great, says he's hungry. Like he was really impressive. So that's a wonderful thing to see that his legs weren't heavy and slow. And he came out and jumped right out and made plays. And so, yeah, it is a transitioning cornerback position, and you hope that it is really deep. And there are some young corners here, Sean Stevens, who signs after the draft, who tried out and made the team. Like there's legit talent. And the theory is you can't have too many cornerbacks. And that's why, they potentially will take a look at Bradberry at safety. He didn't really get reps there because of the injury in the spring. We'll see what happens with him. But there's definitely going to be challenges and great competition for 5 or 6 cornerback spots.
Now, we have Hall of Famers on both sides of the ball retiring, Kelce and Fletch. Love them both to death. Can I ask you this question? Looking at the talent at the offensive line and on the defensive line, what side of the ball is going to miss that player more with the talent we have on both sides? What would you say to that?
I mean, I would say that defensive tackle, probably because you wonder about the depth there. But understand that the Eagles do a really good job of kind of planning out 2 and 3 years. And so there's always a plan for succession. And, the Eagles have been grooming Cam Jurgens for a couple of years here. And Cam, I mean, deserves a lot of credit. He bulked up last year and moved out from his kind of, natural center position and became a good right guard. And that's really hard to do. That speaks to the kind of football player he is. I believe Cam Jurgens will be a sensational center. He has learned under Kelce. He is a smart, athletic, strong, tough, physical, uh, outstanding center. I think he's going to be great. I think that on the defensive side, it is time for Jordan Davis to take that next step. Okay, this is his opportunity right now to be a standout kind of player that he knows he can be and that the Eagles believe he can be. And Jalen Carter, you're going to get a lot of playing time, and you have a chance to be a superstar defensive tackle. And Milton Williams, who nobody talks about, is a really good defensive tackle. Now, after that, the Eagles had the luxury with Fletch of rotating those four, and that gave them a pretty good rotation up front. So somebody else has to step up,
He
whether
played
that's
the most
Marlon
snaps last year too. Even though he was the
Yeah.
oldest guy in the room, Fletch played the most snaps.
Yep, he played really well and showed that he had a lot of football left in him. Now, players like Marlon Tuipulotu and one of my underrated guys who I'm going to give you is Moro Ojomo. I think you're going to see a player who really contributes to this football team, and that's a reason why the Eagles have not gone out and signed a veteran defensive tackle. They believe in the young tackles they have here. It is time for these young tackles as a group to step up.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially with your statement saying the overlooked guy in Milton Williams. I love what he does against the run, and as a pass rusher, but his run stopping ability, go through the analytics, it's really underrated because you don't see it a lot. He's
Yeah.
used sparingly, but when he's used, he's produced. And we've had him on the channel last year, and all he talks about is team first, and wanting to do whatever role is given to him. I think this is going to be the biggest role for him, especially in a Fangio scheme when I can see 3D tackles on the field often, or not often, but more. And I think he's going to live up to it. A lot of defensive talk, and rightfully so. But Dave, how good is this offense going to be?
I think everybody believes this offense should be dynamic, right? Like you should be able, it'll be very hard to defend the Philadelphia Eagles offense. And the acquisition of Saquon, I can't emphasize this enough. Last year, the Eagles led the league in yards per carry by their running backs before contact. They were 31st in the league in yards gained by running backs after contact. Saquon Barkley will break tackles. Saquon Barkley will be able to get ahead of steam. Instead of warding off 2 and 3 defenders in the backfield, as he did often with the Giants, he will be running behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I predict that he will have a huge season and alter the dynamic of this offense and potentially change the entire methodology of the tush push, the brotherly shove. Instead of Jalen taking it into the end zone, hand it off to number 26.
Why not?
TD. And
Why
for all
not?
of you fantasy football players, think about the impact in fantasy football. Are you going to take Saquon Barkley and elevate him because you think he's going to get the ball at the 1 yard line? You downgrade Jalen because you don't think he's going to get as many rushing touchdowns? These are the pressing questions, Philly Mike, that sports fans want to know.
Yeah. At the end of the day, their fantasy leagues they matter. They matter. I still think one thing about Eagle Nation, I believe a true Eagle fan is going to put the Eagles before their fantasy football team.
Yeah, I agree.
There is some fan bases, though, I think that will rather see their fantasy win. We're not going to talk about them.
No.
That being said, you're right. It does alter. The tush push was brotherly shove. Brotherly shove. Was so dynamic, and I think it will still be used, but with a guy like Saquon back there, maybe you cut it 20%, 15%. That's up to Nick and Kellen. Jalen and Saquon probably have input on it too. I love it. Last thing I'm going to ask you, what's your take with all this Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni drama, blah, blah, blah?
The drama of the spring is gone by the time, as soon as they step on the football field, that's all that matters. And, you look around to every team in the league and there's all of this downtime, people are, just having fun and talking and keeping their interest alive. And the chatter can sometimes turn gossipy, and that's just the way it is with the news cycle. But those things don't last. And This football team will come back. It'll be a very good team this year. I think Jalen has to be at a superstar level for this team to win the Super Bowl, and I think that's the goal that everybody has in mind.
Yep, you said it best. The soap opera part of a football season is in the June, July before training camp, right after OTAs. With all that being said, Dave Spadaro, appreciate your time. As always, hit the like, subscribe, and go Birds.
Go Birds, baby. Thanks, Philly Mike.
Peace, peace.